one can will oneself into the corner and no one will scoop one out of that corner because it's out of that willpower. And that willpower is too powerful. And now, given this now set of circumstances with the planets now in the moon, where the imagination is empowered 3 times over, you see, very quickly you become subjected to the very workings of your own mind. So you can literally cast your day out from the moment you wake up, or you can become the victim of the circumstances of that very first flick of thought. That's how powerful it is. That's what moon can do. See?
Since I'm here in the field, I'm kind of running these loops in my nervous system again, where I can't find rest, like in the nights or in the breaks. My nervous system doesn't switch off.
Bearing in mind it is the first day and we had the first night, right? So,
yes.
So because it's very important that we make that adjustment from get going, because I'd like to know whether this is now being in the field or is it simply continuation of how you find it hard for you to relax. So
it's the same thing every time I enter the field. And I know that's where the loop comes in. During the last year, I was still, looping all the all the issues, like all the darkness just swallowing me again, and like physically, emotionally being caught in this loop.
So what feels as trustworthy, safe? Is it
Yes.
sense that something takes over?
Yes.
Isn't it? In meditation,
Yes.
something takes over. Sometimes it feels that something viscerally takes us over. And it can be very, not always pleasant. It can be very pleasant. Sometimes it can be so pleasant that we wish someone turn it notch down. We will speak about that. Incapacity of the nervous system, I'm using this now in turn, to withstand the high voltage of Ananda. When the experience of bliss is too strong, it's overwhelming. So feeling blissy, we're all okay with that. It's blissful here, blissful there. It's like shower. Shower is pleasant, but then it becomes jet shower, and then it becomes a waterfall. It's no longer pleasant. We can't stand. So let's now go back here. So this now, that what takes over, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you mean, it.
Yes.
That's what takes over. So it feels, as you have said just now, right? It feels, it doesn't want to harm.
And it feels embodying at the same time. It does not feel dissociative.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, that experience in the field, in meditation, felt embodying.
Yes, when it happened, it felt embodying, and that it was the first time I experienced it that way, and I could trust that.
Mm-hmm. That's very important. Very, very important. We'll get back to it. So now the not so pleasant, not so positive, the mistrust to whether the body can withstand that.
Yes, also
right? Whether the body can, like this, I'd like to hear more specifically, if you can tell me, what do you mean by that? Or how does it feel?
It just feels like being pushed against a wall, like my nervous system, my neurophysiology feels like a wall which I'm being pushed against, but there's no space. It's just being caught and
Not because you feel that your body is not designed or somehow not strong enough. It's not the sense of like a competing athlete or someone who is with some task or someone who is have to play on stage or play a musical instrument. There's an element of performance and feels like in advance I'm not good enough. And it's with relation to the body now. The body is not strong enough. Does that resonate? This kind of
I mean, subconsciously probably it goes in something like that as well, because sometimes I do feel this kind of performing pressure, which it is of course not, but kind of this outside perspective on myself. But it's more that I don't trust that my body is really mine in a way, or that it's whole. It feels like there's just a hole inside.
But I understand very well what you're saying in terms of not feeling that sense of insulation within our own boundaries, not feeling that sense also of safety, because these boundaries are there that are, whatever we may define them in whichever language, in the auric field, right? That sense of self, the projected sense of self, right? Not just, but that you feel like it doesn't have strongly defined boundaries. So you feel very easily invaded, in other words. No? Or it feels open to being invaded easily.
The question that was in my mind is if if I did project my own darkness, like for some reason, over which was then so painful, or if it could be that, yes, I was unknowingly taken over by some force or forces which I don't know how to locate or identify or.
We are accustomed to think and as a result function based on how we perceive the world to be. So in other words, if we perceive the world to be flat, like the planet, like some people believe today, there's a revival, then if you travel long enough, and if you don't get in a loop of traveling around the periphery like the plate, then you will never fall off the planet. But there is a possibility of going and just sitting on the edge of the planet with the kind of feet dangling down into the outer space. Some people believe that, literally. I don't know how it configured in their understanding, but there is these believers in a flat. They feel Copernicus and all these guys were conspiracy makers. Copernicus, by the way, is Polish. So who knows, maybe Poland, where we're sitting now, is where the conspiracy theory originated, one of the biggest one. Forget about never landing on the moon, but coming up with an idea that the Earth is round. This is some kind of like, whoa, that took the, what an audacity to suggest. So, our beliefs and understanding shapes our reality. This is known. And what we are not aware, of course, is to what degree everything also impacts us from behind the scenes. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise. At other times, we would be better off to actually open up these blinkets that are forces us to stride forward all the time. Because otherwise we would be diverted into so many possibilities and variables. So first, there are so many aspects that influences human life per se. And this is in the domain of the Vedic sciences. Vedic science is a science. It has that right to be called a science. It's science that existed before the term science came into formation in the Western culture. The term science is relatively new, apparently, I've learned. Before that, all of this was blended together, somehow blended together. It's when the science separated, kind of augmented itself outside of the domain of alchemy, outside of the domain of art, and it became science. It's a fascinating stuff. I was struck by that when I was very young, in my late 20s, with all these various interests, particularly the role of alchemy in that trinity, where we could say spirituality, art, and science were inseparable as discipline. They were all together. And to me it was very close because, as you know, I'm your fellow colleague. Or at least I would like to be still considered. Even if I don't paint anything, I don't have portfolio of drawings behind there to show, I still like to be called an artist, right? So I hope you don't mind. I'll speak from that perspective. And to me it was very, very dear, very close, that I like the fact that all these disciplines were together. Artists, alchemists, scientists was all in one. Prior to that was even more. If we go cast a little bit, maybe I'm running ahead of time, I'd love to speak more to that and give it maybe a dedicated discourse. All that was just one under one cover, under one umbrella. It was just that, shaman. See? Shaman. And don't worry, Sol, you know me already long enough, the meanderings way of how I speak about things. I'm not the guy who goes straight to the core of it. So just please be patient with me, and everyone else as well. It's not interesting to go straight to go straight where? Like, you see art, alchemy, science, before they got all divided, separated. See, and prior to that, there was something else even. Where all ritual, worship, invocation, performance, everything was embodied by a shaman. There's a big difference between the way Jim Morrison performed on stage and Bono of the U2. In one case, you could say there was this genuine attempt at entering a transported state of a shaman, in the case of Jim Morrison. In the case of Bono, it's an attempt to look sexy. The outfit is the same. Lizard King jeans, like leather trousers, belt, and whatever goes with that. Radically different. When kids, in teenage kids, right? Obviously, my daughter already had some first encounter with the culture of consciousness altering substances. When I was trying to speak to her, to get to the point, so because she knows a variety of tastes and everything. She knows that Jim Morrison is a part of the family. He's cooler. He's cool, but cooler. He didn't take drugs out of boredom. He didn't take drugs out of being in a party stoned. Later, yes, maybe stories. He did take drugs as a research in consciousness. The famous episode, locked himself in a hotel room. His then young band members could not get him out of the room. He was there for 3 days experimenting with a variety of different substances. He worked as an artist, as an alchemist, we could say. Didn't live long. Was poisoned. Why am I giving this example, this frivolous example that completely could derail us? He was an artist. He was an artist. And artists always walk this line, very, very this line, see? Slim, sharp line. So if you have that in you, then this already will put you in a position of that vulnerability. Your membrane has to be opened enough to constantly receive. And I don't care about artists who are like doing things on the telephone, on the phone, and they're like businessmen, like this, all that Brit pack of the 90s, and art was turned into an enterprise, and that was praised, with Andy Warhol as the greatest priest. The bizarre thing about Andy Warhol is that his personal tastes were actually very baroque, decadent, and tacky. In private, that's how he lived. In private, he was surrounding himself with all these effigies, like all these sculptures, all this, from all that era, all the furniture and everything. And his art was a smack to the good taste of the society. Slap. Artist. You see? So, coming back now, closer to your inquiry here, closer to what you're asking, it is very natural not to trust the body. You see? You'd be surprised for how many people that is the case. Very natural. It's not true that, like as you said, as with most people or as with others. It's a constant dance, constant balance. Constant balance. So, of course, knowing your constitutional setup is a must. You need to know your weaknesses and your strengths. The way you are here embodied as awareness has its limitations, and therefore they are called doshas, as you know. So these doshas, Ayurvedically speaking, is what becomes that very, very balanced walk. So the more you know and the more you're aware of that, the more comfortable you become in your body. When we're younger, we take things for granted. When we're younger, we take things for granted all the time. Abuse the body constantly. For the right reason, for wrong reason, doesn't matter. But then our act has to sharpen up, because we can't do this anymore, because the body just throws fits of disorder, disobeying. You want body to do this? I'm sorry, I can't do this, my dear. You think if I was able to do it 10 years ago, you're out of your mind? Start getting more sensible, man. I'm talking to myself. For you, it will say, hey, lady, what's up? Where's love? So, this is of primal importance. This is very important. You're entering this all in the domain of Vedic sciences. So you need to know as much as you can in terms of what's the set of circumstances, constitutional setup, where the lagnas, where your birth chart, all the planets, houses, what and how this all manifested itself, where the propensity, so that you can then be more forgiving, forgiving towards yourself, whilst at the same time knowing your strengths, knowing also how everything can be a quicksilver-like, particularly when it comes to the mind. So now going back to where you have ended what you were saying, which prompted me to say this is your immersion, my dear. In response to, is it possible that, quoting you, that I brought these dark energies up on myself, right? My own dark energy kind of, if I wasn't cursed, if nothing entered me as an entity, right? All this kind of stuff. If there's nothing of that kind happened, if there's no propensity, if I'm not subjected, right, or susceptible based on the chart, what has happened? My response also was, if you remember now, that we are with no idea how many factors influence us behind the scenes. So sometimes it's a blessing to actually have this kind of like naive, happy-go-lucky, the earth is flat attitude, Because this kind of like at least saves us from going nuts. When we become more aware, with that awareness, a lot of starts to flood into the system. Before, I didn't know my ancestors down to 7th generation all now live through me, even in my DNA. I thought I'm my own guy. I literally thought I'm my own person. And then I learned that apparently 50% this, 50% that, 25% of that, 25%, 12 and a half, 6, what is it? 6, that's how they all live in me, the 7 generations. Not just grandma, but grandpa lives somewhere, squeezed in his 6 whatever percent. And I have no idea how to handle him. I've never met my father in life. I don't recall physical memory. I was too young. Never met him. Don't even know how he smelled. See? No idea. And then, can you imagine dealing with the grandpa? It's like before we talk about really what you want. So now it's like, this is serious. And the reason why I'm allowing this, because you know me. You know me, this is the way I respond. This is the way I am. This is me being simply fully present, authentic. I don't want to pretend like, oh dear, what should we do? No, you know what? Are you awareness? Your awareness. Nothing else other than awareness. We'll come to that. One can will oneself into the corner And no one will scoop one out of that corner, because it's out of that willpower. And that willpower is too powerful. And now, given this now set of circumstances with the planets now in the moon, where the imagination is empowered 3 times over, you see, very quickly you become subjected to the very workings of your own mind. So you can literally cast your day out from the moment you wake up, or you can become the victim of the circumstances of that very first flick of thought. That's how powerful it is. That's what moon can do. See? So, if you want to have this recap, if you want to have a summary, if you want to have this now kind of broken down, like just give me the bloody answer, kind of thing. Stop beating about the bush and telling me, rock and roll. That auric field, see, this sense of ahamkara, that sense of self is very important. It needs to be strengthened. And yes, there are, of course, I'm not going to deny there are cases when our field can be invaded. Invaded, how, why, by whom, how can that be done? Isn't that non-duality? Aren't we speaking from the umbrella of not two? Aren't we speaking from the place and perspective of the Advaita? Well, yes, we do. All this happens within the ocean of one and only awareness. But we are subjected to this at the superficial level, even at the level of where the experience takes place, where that individuality is savored. After all, this individuality is the very expression of the mother. Mother is selfish. Selfish to the degree that she gives birth to her own children and she consumes them, eats them alive. See? This is the very, very gory representation pertaining to tradition, particular tradition. But at the very same time, there is the benevolent aspect, right, of the mother, who also always releases her children, always unattached at the very same time. All these are covered by one and the same mother. This mother is Kundalini. Because Kundalini herself is Shiva. Shiva in disguise. How can Shiva be this, that? How? Only through the power of Kundalini. So this individuality, of course, this sense of self, can go through the phases of being assaulted. And if the ahamkaric field is not strong enough, then there is a possibility of it being weakened further. See? So where it needs to be propped, you prop it from every possible way you can. Everything goes into that. When the ship is out in the sea and there is a break, when there is a hole, everything goes into sealing that hole. You're no longer at the mercy of, oh, I'm going to figure it out, let me just make to the port, and then we will address this. No, bloody fill it in right now. Everyone, all hands on deck. This is what truly it means. Everyone, everything goes. Sealing that leak. And the sealing that leak is here. Knowing your constitutional setup. Knowing all that what Ayurveda comes with as the science of life. Knowing also from the point of view of Jyotishi. And then the list goes on, you see? The environment you live in, how you create that environment, purifying the place you are in. All these Vastu principles. You see, all the principles of likes increases likes in terms of connections. relationships. Everyone influences us. Yes, astrologically, good astrologer will tell you if you are the influencer or you will be most likely influenced. And it's just, that's how it works. Sometimes some of us are born to be influencers, not how it is used in the Instagram world. Beings who can influence others by mere fact that they are in contact, by mere fact that they are infectious, they're contagious. Everything is contagious. Laziness is the most contagious thing. You know, it's worse than coronavirus. It incapacitates us completely. So all this is very, very intimately interconnected. So this is what it means, you see? You take the full gamut of that knowledge, and then it's still simply sealing the crack, sealing that which is where the leak is coming from. But that's not what the job is about. The job is about to sail gracefully, see? The job is to enjoy that, what it means to be in the open seas. And that's what it means to be an artist. So this is very important, that you need to change that attention from constantly trying to repair yourself, constantly trying to address something that feels as if it's not strong enough. You do the right thing and let that be automatic. Let that become your second nature. Develop good habits. Develop good habits. Many years ago, this gentleman over there, his name also, he's also known as Dattatreya, asked me, so if all this is just like that, you know, awareness and bust, so what they're left to do? And I said, there's nothing to do except 2V, vigilance and virtue. Remember that? Virtue and vigilance, right? That's all there is left to put the attention. Because by these 2 V's, a lot of area covered. A lot. So simply having good habits already goes and paves the way for knowing that you will always fall on a habit. You see? Or doing things out of habit, hoping that somehow this doesn't contribute to increases is a naivety. Naivety is just as naive to think that one can go to the end of the world and then just sit there and flip one feet at the edge of the cosmos. Think maybe, who knows, maybe there'll be, what's his name? Little Prince passed by, hello, on his own little planet. No. Create your own reality. That's what artist is. See? Will to power. You create your own reality. And use this connection. This is what it's here for. Use it. See? True understanding of Guru, one way or another, has 2 ways. And I'm not saying that, he said he thinks of himself as a guru. Like quickly, like someone. Disclaimer. The meaning here is to be used. Okay? To be used. It's a principle. And if there is a connection, see? If there is a connection, if there is this connection is also embalmed with that, what invokes trust, it's unstoppable. Unstoppable, you see? And it's a one-way connection. It may feel like, well, does he see me? Does she see me? Does he see me? Am I being seen? The Guru is the seer. The connection is made through your own retina, where the light breaks, which illumines the stars. It comes from your own heart, my dear. And the fact that you recognize someone in life and forge the connection is on that account only. But the beauty of it is that we don't want to just clinically understand that and think we outsmart the whole setup. No, we live it then. We breathe it, we live it, we embody that. Everyone who comes in contact, whoever I came in contact with, they all become strong, powerful. I know that. Why? Not because I'm powerful. Well, I'd like to, like when I get better, recovering now, towards the end of the immersion, like some guys would do that, maybe arm wrestle, who knows? Not that strength we're talking about. It's not that strength. So, this is why I said, it's not as bad as it sounds. Trusting the process, you are not alone at all in that. How can one trust the process? Process is volatile, unpredictable. We never know. Whenever I started new painting, and particularly if this was on the break of something new, when some new things were tried, it was like danger. You never know if you're going to rise. You never know. It's never guaranteed. It's always a risky project. A risky project. But the trust that you spoke to when I've asked you to elaborate what you feel in meditation, see? That power that takes over. The trust to the goddess is the trust to the mother. Most benevolent mother. No other mother will ever be there. The mother of the mothers. How can we not trust? The very trust as a term comes from her. She is the one who coined these terms out of her love. It's not even it doesn't even belong to the category of language, to trust and not to trust. Ma, that's all there is. And surrendering to that Ma is just the greatest joy there is. And experiencing that, it's what makes us feel with this internal tingling, scintillating light that illumines every corner of the universe and certainly every cell in this body. The process, yes, the process, it's okay. So it's okay not to feel that there is this to that to the process. Let's shift the attention now, the attention and the inquiry to that where what you would like to will into being, rather than what are you subjected to and undermined. Do you see the difference? Willing and being subjected to. We consciously come out of that victimhood, consciously, through the willpower. Okay? Through the willpower. No event in life that we went through went outside of that what meant to make you. This is very, very clear understanding. And it's also immediately how we want to look at it. And this is where the quicksilver we told. This is the alchemy. This is the alchemy. We can look at it and feel completely victimized and feel completely disabled, disempowered. And we can look at it and we can feel that, well, you know what? Who am I right now is a sum total of all that what went into it. I'll take it all and I make it into something. Because it makes itself into something anyway. So I'm not going to waste my life now. It's very important. And you're not alone in that. So many of us are subjected to these doubts, these limitations. This, that, something in life did not went how it should have. Nothing in life goes according to plan. That's the whole point of life. You know? Life, that Netflix series, all this, try to imitate life. And the best, those that succeed, that show this exact, constant cliffhanger, unpredictability, not knowing the plot. All this in the flux, guessing, see? Whilst being lived. Whilst being lived. And this is very important, other something we again run ahead of ourselves a little bit here, is what's important here is the quality of our responses. After all that, with all that said, with all that experienced, what matters the most is what left after it all is digested. See? So these emotions, these feelings play extraordinary role. This is the uniqueness of Tantra. Uniqueness of Tantra. If it was about aloofness, if it was about becoming numb, if it was about this or that, why bother? So the beauty is extracted from absolutely everything. Terrifying and beatific experiences contribute to the same thing. It's the emotional content that we're left with. That's of importance. Because that's why we live here in the first place.